I knocked on the door, wearing old, dirty clothing. It still had the horrible smell of its previous owner. My face was covered in bruises, and half of Samir's face was ripped. He was by my side. Hector opened his door and looked at us. He was wearing pajamas and had a cigarette in his mouth. We stared at each other for almost a full minute. "So, what do we do?" I asked. He seemed as scared as we were. Come in, please." He let us enter his house and led us to the dining table. I could hear his wife and child snoring inside the other rooms. "So, where's Victoria?" Hector asked, as he served cocoa tea to us. "She's gone," Samir said, with a bit of melancholy in his voice. "Fuck. How did that happen? Did she disobey the rules?" Hector asked, clearly worried. "No, a giant miner came out of the safe room and killed her with a pickaxe," Samir answered. "God, the safe room stopped working? Damn, on my first day as supervisor." "Hector, what do we do? Please, tell us the Foundation knows how to stop that demon. Maybe the paper I gave you had instructions? Please." I pleaded to him. "No, the Inquisition couldn't find a way to get rid of the Samipada evil, so they only left. I'm afraid there is no known way to get rid of him," Hector answered. "Maybe there's some kind of ancient Inca ritual?" "He'll kill us all, Hector," Samir said. "Actually, there may be a way. There's a very old woman in the city's nursing home. In my childhood, they said she had mystical powers. She's over 90 years old. I don't know if she'll be helpful," he said. "Are they open at night? We can go there," Samir said. "Yes, and please, tell me he's with you." Hector pointed to a person who was watching us from the window. It was just a silhouette hidden by the curtains. "No, he's not," I said, then noticed a familiar sound. My car has a minor problem in one of its tires, and that problem is responsible for producing a weird sound whenever my car speeds around 120 kilometers per hour. And then I remembered I had abandoned my car on the road. "Isn't that speed too fast for this small town?" Samir asked. "Yes," Hector said. Suddenly, my car somehow crashed into the house, and I fell to the floor. I got up as fast as I could, even with some bruises and my eyesight a bit blurry. "Oh, hello! Am I late to the party?" the silhouette said as he entered the house, slowly assuming the form of Supe. Behind him on the street, I could see dozens of stalkers coming in our direction. Up to 50, maybe. "Honey, what's happening?" Hector's wife shouted as she left her room a bit sleepy. A huge tentacle emerged out of Supe's back and grabbed her by the neck. "No!" Hector shouted. He was stuck under one of my car's wheels. I could also hear children crying. I assumed they were his kids, but I didn't see them. "Oh, do you need me to call your mommy, Hector?" Supe said. Suddenly, he had the face of an old woman. "Supe, release her! It's me that you want!" I shouted. "Are you nuts, Javier? He'll kill you!" Samir said. He was on the other side of the room and seemed to have a broken leg. Supe released the woman and looked at me with his large, black, dead eyes. "Let's make a new deal, son. I will stop my violence, but in exchange you will bring 3 souls to me per lunar cycle." "Maybe that is the deal, Javier. You do it or you die. It's your choice." Suddenly, Supe stumbled, but managed to remain standing. He had been shot in the head by Hector. "I will hold him! Run away!" Hector shouted, with the revolver in his hand. I did what he said, and ran as fast as I could, hearing Hector's screams of agony and pain. I entered Samir's car. There was a huge line of stalkers in the way. I had no option but to risk myself. The street had only one way out. I accelerated the car and went through the horde of stalkers. Some of them started to climb on the car's roof. Others were punching at the windows and trying to break the windshield. I just closed my eyes and carried on. I wished they were all gone. I wish I never took this job. I wish my wife never went into that school bus, and carried on. I opened my eyes again. The stalkers were still surrounding my car, slowing it down more and more. Their hands starting to shatter the car's structure, but I carried on. One of their absurdly sharp fingernails scratched my cheek, but I carried on. Eventually the car regained its speed, and I accelerated out of that horde of stalkers. They were incredibly strong, and one of them even managed to hold my car for a few seconds before I got myself free. I knew where the old people's shelter was. I just needed to get there. The only remaining mirror of the car showed the stalkers running after me. After some 15 minutes, I arrived at the nursing home. I thought none of the stalkers were well behind, but none of them were holding onto the car. Oh, how wrong I was. The exact moment I left my car, one stalker came out of the trunk and ran in my direction. I burst into the nursing home and barred the glass door with a nearby wardrobe. "Are you insane?" the receptionist said. "I hope not. Can't you see that thing?" I shouted as I pointed to the stalker who was throwing himself at the door. "What?" she asked, confused and probably scared. "Where is the old woman? The oldest?" "Sir, you're invading this establishment. I can't let you talk to Mr. Skaruda. I'll have to call the police." She was suddenly grabbed by two stalker hands that emerged from a window behind her and pulled her outside. I wasted no more time. I ran through the place's corridors until I found Garuda's bedroom. All the doors had the name of their inhabitants, so it wasn't very difficult. "Mr. Skaruda," I said. She was sleeping, so I kind of woke her up. "Oh, what's happening?" she asked, still in her bed. "I need your help," I said as I locked the door and threw a random table in front of it. Luckily, there were no windows inside. "How can I help you? I can't even move my legs anymore," the old woman said. I walked to the side of her bed, hearing that the things were trying to break the door. "Listen, a friend of mine said you have mystical powers. I need your help. Supe released himself out of the Samipata fortress. Do you know any way to stop him? Please, he's already here," I said as the scratching on the door became even more intense. "I never had mystical powers. I just have a few advantages. That's why I'm still alive after 110 years. "Which advantages?" I asked. Scratching was replaced by heavy punches. "My grandfather. He was not a common man. He was the Samipata's mountain Apu, probably still alive. You said Supe is coming from the Inca fortress. If that is happening, it is because my grandfather allowed him to use his mountain. I assume you don't know much of Inca mythology, right?" "Actually, no. I'm not from here." "Yes, I could feel it. You're from the land of the Guardians." Suddenly the punches on the door stopped. This made me even more tense. "Please, explain the mythology to me. I need your help." I heard the creatures going away from the door. It was certainly planning something. "Each mountain has their own Apu, a ruler of the mountain. See, in Inca mythology, the mountain's caves were portal to other realms. The only way for Supe to leak into this realm is through a portal. And he can only use a portal if the mountain's Apu lets him do it." It sounded like insane gibberish to me, but my situation was far from sans. "Please, tell me, how do I convince your grandfather to stop Supe? How do I find your grandfather?" I implored. I heard a weird noise and looked back. A weird, black liquid was infiltrating the room from under the door. "The only way to contact him is if you enter the cave and call his name. His name is Yipanki Toko. He used to live in one of the waterfalls of Las Cuevas. But if Supe is after you, you'll never make it there." "How did you enrage him so much?" "I didn't do very much. He thought I was going to betray him, but I wasn't going to. It didn't stop him from snapping and killing everyone he saw. Long time he doesn't do that. Well, see you in Hanan Pacha. I'll go back to my sleep now. She closed her eyes and turned to the other side. I took a deep breath, removed the table and opened the door, and burst out of the room. In front of me was one of the hooded people I had seen a few days before. He had a pitchfork in his hand, and he was going to attack me with it, aiming for my head. I used one of my hands to stop it. I've never screamed so much in my life. One of my fingers fell to the floor, and there was now a bleeding hole in my hand. I pushed the monsters away and ran to the building's entrance. However, the entrance was already surrounded by stalkers. I looked over the place, not finding another door to escape, but I found something else. The window that the first stalker used to pull the secretary away was open. I used the secretary's table and jumped through it, falling into a dark and dirty alleyway. However, there was a bike there. I mounted it and started riding from the place through the alleyways. I pedaled with the bicycle through the dark alleyways of the city, hearing the hordes of stalkers chasing me. I needed to talk to that mountain spirit the old woman mentioned, but I wouldn't make it to the mountain if I tried to go there on a bike. I still had a last resort. I didn't know if it would work, but I was desperate. I entered the police station thunderously, accidentally awaking the officer responsible for the night shift. "What the?" he shouted as I threw the first thing I found in front of the door. There were already 2 stalkers visible in the yellowed and old streetlights. "I need help. Not much time for explaining. I'm being followed by a demon or something, and he's trying to kill me. He's already killed a lot of people," I said, not knowing how to explain the situation in a simple way. "Are you nuts? Have you really awakened me at..." He looked at his watch. 3:15 a.m. just for crazy gibberish. Sir, are you insane? He suddenly stopped shouting when he looked at the street through the windows. There were hundreds of stalkers all over the street, coming toward us. And amidst them, an enormous creature, with what seemed like insect legs. It was hard to see in the dark. The policeman immediately got on his phone and started calling his boss. "Sir, we've got a kind of a situation here. There are hundreds of..." He was constantly blinking. It looked like he was trying to wake himself from that weird dream. "Monsters coming toward the station and a giant insect. I don't know. Please, sir, I'm serious. No, why would I let... I've never pranked any..." He put the phone back in its place and gave me a look. In a single expression, he transmitted frustration, fright, fear, anger, and grief. Both of us knew we weren't going to get any help, and we were on our own. "Please, tell me you're pranking me with the other cops, or a reality show. I've never asked you for anything," he pleaded. "I'd love to tell you that. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening," I said as I tried to close all the windows. "When I was a child, Granny would tell me the old tales of the demons from the prison. The Inca were so afraid of the devil they literally worshipped him and asked him not to harm them. She said because the cults stopped, they would eventually be revolted and come for us. I never believed it, but always took her advice. If that is what's happening..." He said that the stalkers started to surround the station, battering on the windows and doors and climbing the outside walls. "Sir, I don't think telling stories is going to help us." "It won't, but this will." He showed me a really old pistol. It was stuffed with what was clearly llama fur. This belonged to my family for generations. It was made with the fur of Uruchile. "What? How long have you been living here? He is the god of llamas, the animals that protect us from evil spirits." He loaded the gun and got up and went straight to the window. He was not terrified anymore. He was angered by the spirits of his grandmother's tales, the spirits that threatened to destroy his life. I covered my ears and hoped for everything to be fine. He started shooting. Some of the stalkers were falling down, but there were too many. The officer didn't give up, though, and when he paused to recharge his gun, I heard laughter by my side. Funny, right? He really thinks he'll be able to shoot me down. I looked to my side. Sitting on the station's balcony was Supe, now wearing a bizarre policeman suit covered in blood. "Officer! Officer!" I shouted, almost falling backward because of the fright. "Oh!" the officer shouted, turning to Supe and shooting him at least 10 times. The bullets hit the demon, making holes all over his torso, from where a weird mix of golden and gray blood started to outpour. I closed my eyes and braced myself, waiting for a murderous outburst, but instead I just heard laughter. Supe was almost falling to the floor due to laughter. All the stalkers outside were also laughing, and some of them didn't even have mouths. "Did you seriously think that you could kill me, Carlos? Seriously? You're so dumb. You're so dumb. Don't you know policemen aren't supposed to shoot suspects?" Supe laughed. He was really having a great time. All the stalkers were still laughing. "Mercy, please, I beg." The policeman kneeled down. "I'm sick of this." I took the weapon from his hands and shot all the bullets I could. I'm a security guard, so I know how to shoot. I just didn't expect to be better than a police officer. I put several bullets in Supe's face. The bullets made his body fall backwards, and although the stalkers were still laughing, the demon wasn't anymore. "I'm disappointed in you, son." I heard his voice coming from beneath me. And then I felt like I was shaking. No, everything was shaking. The earthquake alarm echoed throughout the entire town. Cracks appeared on the streets, and hands started to climb from them, and the light on all the houses started to turn on. The stalkers looked to the source of the lights, and then I heard the screams. From all the people, old, young, men, women. It was slaughter. Supe was slaughtering the entire town. I stood there in shock when something greasy grabbed one of my legs. It was Supe, but not cosplaying bizarre snuff film versions of policemen, miners, emperors, or guards. He was now just a formless and really huge pile of meat, grease, blood, viscera, limbs and faces with expressions of horror, all soaked in that weird golden gray liquid. "Nope!" I shot his hand with the weapon and it retreated, but 3 more came from the mist. "Citizen! We can escape with the car!" The policeman waved at me, pointing to the patrol car parked outside. The stalkers were all distracted, so we should be able to get there. The cop tried to unlock the door so we could exit, but the huge mess that Supe made impersonated a growl, and tentacles grabbed him by the neck. He threw the cars to me before they broke his neck and started tearing his head to pieces. I jumped through the window, firmly holding the weapon, and ran to the police car. It wasn't difficult getting inside, and the car started off pretty fast. Supe was exiting the station, breaking all the walls and glass. The tentacles were coming from the floor, tearing the nearby buildings apart. I accelerated, going around the cracks in the streets and hit the road. There, I saw people running everywhere, and even more bizarre monsters chasing them. And then I saw it, on the sky among the clouds illuminated by the moon, were helicopters, all of them with that weird logo from Hector's organization. Not shortly after that, all the radios went dead, and my cell phone stopped functioning. I ignored everything. I'd do what the woman from the nursing home told me to do. Find the Samipata Apu and convince him to stop Supe. When I parked the car next to Las Cuevas, just as I left the police car, I heard several noises coming from the city. The entire city was being destroyed by tentacles, and the helicopters were shooting them with what seemed like weird plasma bullets. I couldn't determine exactly who was winning or losing, and every time I tried to recall, My memory gets more and more blurry. Anyway, I went straight into the caves, feeling the water going all the way up to my knees. I hoped my eyes could guide me well in the darkness. Not even my cell phone's flashlight was working anymore. In fact, it had stopped working the moment I saw the helicopters. That's why I almost fell to the floor from fright when the radio started playing flamenco music in the loudest manner possible. I was already used to Suppe's madness, so I quickly recomposed myself and kept walking in the muddy water. That scare told me something. Suppe knew I was here, but he didn't appear immediately, so he was either planning a big entry or was busy somewhere else. Maybe he was trying to scare me. Well, that was a terrible jump scare. I kept the pace, entering the cave complex and feeling the cold water falling on my head and shoulders. I had been to Las Cuevas before, but under completely different circumstances. I went there with my wife on our first holiday in Bolivia, and the waterfalls were beautiful. Now everything was just weird. There were no people bathing in the water, just me, alone, at a cave in a mountain. But the place felt different too, a bit off. It was the same feeling of unease I felt in the car just a few hours before. There was something there with me, but it wasn't in the back seat this time. No, the entire car was coming behind me. I looked back, seeing it drive behind me, slower than my pace, drowning its wheels on the water and with its lights turned on. The lights offset my eyes in the darkness, and I couldn't see who was driving. The flamenco music was still playing, but in a very lowered tone this time. I had the urge to throw myself to the side, feeling that the car was going to come in all its speed and shatter me to pieces. Surprisingly, it didn't. I stopped walking, and the vehicle stopped too. I started walking again, and so did it. It felt like the car was imitating me. Was it? I'm sorry, I'm subtly having a hard time recalling what happened. I've been locked in this room for 2 or 3 days, and just today they let me use my cell phone. Every day these people in white jackets and black suits come, make interviews, and inject me with these weird things. Oh, I remember now. I was scared, but I didn't have much more to lose by that point, so I approached the car and looked into the windshield, where I could see it better. It was entirely empty. I'm not joking. Even the seats had disappeared, and it was filled with water. Now, how was that even possible? Are you just going to stand there? I heard someone saying behind me. I was prepared for yet another of Suppe's madnesses, but when I turned back, there was a formal dinner table standing in the middle of the water. It was visibly old, with some Baroque ornaments. There were seats, too. Actually, the car's seats. Sitting in one of them was a... What was sitting there? My memory gets more and more blurry. Since one of those weird helicopters flashed me, I can't remember. What can't I remember? Wait, I remember. Sitting in one of those seats was a man, wearing a nice old-fashioned suit and top hat. A really old-fashioned suit. It seemed like they took it straight out of a 19th century film. There were 6 buttons in that suit, and a white bow tie. The illumination was made by the car's headlights, and the car's radio was making background music. On the table, there were several fruits, cheeses, Parma ham, wine served in goblets, scrambled eggs, cocoa leaves, and several other foods. His face was the weirdest thing. He had the face of a lion, but with several horns in various parts of it. On his mouth was hanging a smoking pipe. I didn't know what you liked, so I just kind of brought everything. I could immediately tell that it wasn't Suppe. His voice, although not comforting, was much more gentle, and his clothing wasn't made of rotten flesh and didn't have a single bloodstain. You're the Mountain Apu? Yupan Kitoko, right? He interrupted me. Take a seat. I'm hungry. Although he was giving me an order, he was being very gentle. I took my seat and looked at the food. I expected them to be illusions or rotten, but they seemed perfectly fine. Don't worry, I'm not poisoning you. If I wanted to kill you, you'd be dead the first day you stepped foot on my mountain, Toko said as he ate an entire apple with a single bite. I don't know how he managed to store so many teeth in his mouth. I nodded and started to put the scrambled eggs on my plate. It was actually delicious. I started to eat excitedly all the food, the apples, the cocoa tea, the wines, the cheese. It was all so delicious I felt like I was in a restaurant. The weirdest restaurant ever. Javier, you're the first one here in a long time that isn't Supe, he said as he drank one of the wines. What? I think it's time I gave you some explanation. Well, as my granddaughter told you, I am the physical manifestation of this mountain. Back at the time of the Inca Empire, all mountains had their own Apu to protect them. Now, few of us remain. What? Aren't you all immortal? Yes. They left. Most of us were forgotten, so many left to live common lives, pretending to be human or went to the other realms. I myself have never tried. Also, a human life for a bit during the 19th century. That's where I got this glorious suit. But you humans expire too early, and working is so boring. So I ended up coming back to my mountain. But why are you letting Supe walk around? He's been doing atrocities for centuries. There must be hundreds of deaths already. He has killed or influenced in the death of exactly 29,316 people since he began his thing 1,500 years ago. Each time he killed, he gifted me with the thing I care most in this world. Gold. Company for a delicious breakfast. Is there anything better? Wait. You let him kill all those people just so you could have someone to eat breakfast with you. It's not that simple. I can make one of you humans sit with me and eat whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. But then everyone would just keep endlessly trying to flatter me. And when someone is just agreeing with everything you say, well then, that's not real conversation. That's why Supe was so good to have a conversation with. That guy is completely unpredictable. In fact, on my 2,000th birthday, he presented me with paella. When I ate it, it felt odd. I stopped eating it, thinking maybe he had accidentally cooked rotten food, but later the same day, I went to town to bang one of the hot chicks there, and one of my pregnant girlfriends was found completely eviscerated, and with her 7-month fetus missing. Turns out he put my offspring in my food. Supe was awesome, he said, laughing. And what did you do to him? I asked, sincerely horrified. I did the same thing to him when a girl got pregnant from him some decades later. We kind of turned it into a tradition until we got bored of it. But that's not why I've welcomed you here. It's because I'm actually tired of him. He keeps killing more and more people, and that makes me have more and more meals together. And I'm so fucking tired of seeing that psycho face every morning. So 3 years ago, I gave him a free pass to do whatever he wanted out here and use the pits as many times as he wanted, but once he finished his thing, he'd have to have just as many meals with me as people he killed. And use the free pass he did. The guy just killed the half of the fucking town down there, and there's no way I'm having over 2,000 breakfasts with him, Yupanqui said as he smoked his pipe. So you want me to replace him? Yes, I want you to come every Sunday and have breakfast with me, but I don't want you to treat me like a god like those morons down there used to. I want you to treat me like a friend. Be sincere with me. Do we have a deal, Javier? Wait. You let that psycho kill all of those people just so you could have breakfast with someone? Yes? Holy fuck, why are all you gods so insane? Yes, that's what I wanted. You see? Sincerity. Oh, our friendship is going to last so long. Until you die. Or I get bored of you, I mean. Then I'm just going to burn you alive or something. Anyway, have a nice week, and... Oh, yes, I've already locked up Supe. Well, must leave now. Your human friends are coming. He simply dived in the water and disappeared, even though the water was just at my knees and he was at least 3 meters tall. I heard the helicopters approaching, and my memory starts to get super blurry around there. I remember leaving the caves and seeing the men in black descending from the helicopters. I could see the city, too. The tentacles were being pulled back into the soil, and I saw, through now enormous cracks all over town, a gigantic beast, much bigger than even the mountain, screaming in pain and burning in fire. No, it wasn't pain. It was rage. Hatred. And I looked at the helicopters. That's when they flashed me. I don't remember much from what happened next. I remember waking in a weird hospital. A lot of people I knew from town were being treated. All of them were unconscious. Hector was there. I mean, half of Hector was there. He was lying on a hammock, but his legs were not. And nor one of his eyes and hands. His belly was entirely open and full of bites. I knew you'd do it, kid, he said with a smile on his face. I don't remember what I replied. I never saw him again after that either. They locked me in here, and have been interviewing me ever since I arrived, giving me medicines. 3 or 4 hours ago, a man wearing a black suit, sunglasses, and with a not entirely bald head, with what was clearly a Brazilian accent, came into my room, gave me my cell phone, and told me, "The O5 have approved you as the new site director, or, as they like to call these people in the museum, supervisor. We are still studying how you did it, but you somehow managed to contain the anomaly by yourself. We will give you more details in 2 or 3 days after we've finished fixing the mess in the town." Wait, what? He interrupted me. No, you cannot deny your new job. You are free to use your cell phone one last time. Tomorrow you'll be receiving a new one, along with a new identity. Before I could ask him anything, he simply left. I can't even remember his name, even with it on his badge. No. Wait, I think I remember it now. It was Arnaldo Celeste, I think. Was he the guy Supe ordered me to kill? Well, doesn't matter anymore. I think I'm going to be staying in the ruins a lot more than I previously thought. And as always, boys and girls, thank you for watching. If you liked today's story, give it a thumbs up. To hear more stories like this one, hit the subscribe button, making sure you turn on that bell for notifications of when I publish new stories every Tuesday and Thursday. To support this channel, click the link for our Patreon in the description box below. Until next time, sweet dreams.